Hey, everybody, we are live. I'm Jeff with eBay Addicts, and today I have a returning guest coming back with me. The eBay Hustler is here. How are you doing today?
Hey, good. Thanks for having me.
Hey, man, glad that you made your returning voyage. You made it back on the channel. I was just telling them before we went live, our last video had over 400 views, so you're a popular guest.
Oh,
People
come
tune in to check you out and see how you're doing. So, anyways, go ahead and introduce yourself to our audience in case they don't know who you are. Tell everybody who you are, where you're from, and tell them what it is that you do.
Well, my name's Dave, and I'm from Utah. I moved here to Utah about, I don't know, 15 years ago from California, and I've been selling full-time on eBay since last March. I started on eBay in February of 2019. We can get into a little more of why and that kind of stuff if you want to, but basically it just started out as a side hustle and a very steep learning curve, as a lot of you people on eBay and other platforms know. And I managed to, partially because of all the COVID shutdowns and a lot of people switching to e-commerce, I feel like that kind of gave me an opportunity to quit my kind of dead end job and go into this eBay thing. And I just recently last month started selling on Mercari, and so we'll see how that goes. But I have my YouTube channel, the eBay Hustler. It's kind of a silly name, but that's what I do there. And if we wanted to go into what my YouTube channel is, because my YouTube channel is kind of discombobulated, if you'd say. I'm kind of all over the place. But once I tell you my story of how it kind of all comes together, so the madness makes sense. It's kind of controlled chaos in my life, I guess.
All right. Well, let's go ahead and get into your story. We got plenty of time. People are tuning in to come check you out. We have somebody here in the chat today says CEO of 3,500 employees says can't wait for this. So we have people that have been waiting to tune in to come by and see you today. So let's get into your story a little bit because at one time you used to be a full-time employee, and then you got to the point where you left your job to become a full-time reseller, and you've been a full-time reseller now for almost a year. So let's get into your backstory a little bit. Let's talk about that.
Well, how far back do you want to go? See, I was born 45 years ago, and no, we won't go that far, right? So basically, I started out, we'll just rewind just to Utah. I moved to Utah to go, I was an EMT in California. I'd been doing that for, 8 years or so. I came to Utah to go to paramedic school, thinking I was going to be a fire paramedic type of thing. I got on with a combination fire department where we were kind of volunteer, kind of full-time. And just started running calls, and I kind of got dead end jobbed in it because it's not really a career being a part-time firefighter paramedic. So at the time, well, shoot, I'll just get into it. I was drinking a lot, and I was living with my dad and kind of mooching off of him and kind of being a loser. At the same time, I had at that time I had one kid, and I was married, and we're all living together. And I mean, I wasn't I was still being the firefighter, being the paramedic. So I wasn't like functionally like stumbling around. I was more of a drink at night kind of guy on my, my off days. And my dad was older, so I was also taking care of him. But
right.
But to be honest, I didn't have to go out and like hustle like a lot of people my age back then. This would have been when I was like 28, 29, 30. So way old enough to get off my butt and, be my own man. But my dad was nice and kind of, took me in, and I was nice and I was helping out. So it's kind of like a mutually dysfunctional relationship where after my mom died, he probably should have gone and done something, and I probably should have gone my own way, but we didn't. So anyway, ended up staying with him. And then in 2014, he passed away. So I inherited his house. And so it's kind of like when you're on Wheel of Fortune, right? And you win a prize. Okay, they send you to the Bahamas, but they don't pay for your airfare. So essentially you're winning a bill. So I inherited his house, but I also inherited his mortgage, which thanks to the way I was living, I had junk credit. So I couldn't refinance to get it in my name. And this is a lot of shenanigans. So anyway, I ended up staying in his house. He had it on a 10-year loan. So the payment per month was huge. I'm still paying it. And so I thought, well, that was kind of my come to Jesus moment where the bottle went away and I had to be a big boy. So I got a job at the local hospital first, just to, at this time I had my only work history for the last like 6 years had been the volunteer fire department. So it was hard to find a job because they're looking at going, okay, this is cool, but why are you so old and have no work history? So I got on at the local hospital, really like bottom of the barrel job, worked my way up, worked there for a year. And then I got a job at a plasma center. For people who don't know, it's you go donate your plasma and they turn it into medications. Students and people do that. And so I worked there and I worked my way up to management. And I basically got my legs underneath me and kind of became a big boy and realized I had some talents in leadership and management, and I was really good with people, and I could relate a lot with people because of all the calls I had run. And by this time, my brother had killed himself. My mom was dead. My dad was dead. So I can relate to people's pain, I guess, very easily. And so I was good with the employees, and they followed me. A lot of the donors liked me, and it just worked out well. But I came to where I either wanted, my only choice was to become the manager or move and become a manager somewhere else. And we're not leaving Utah because my kids are here. My kids love it. We have our friends and hobbies, our church, all that stuff. So I had to figure something out because I'd worked there for almost 5 years, and budget wise, I was after 5 years just breaking even. So that's when we get to 2019 and I start selling on eBay. And man, I don't know if it was like this for you, but when I first saw it back then, it was a 60-day total before they switched to the 90. And I got like $1,000 on my 60-day total. And I thought I was a baller. It was time to start, popping bottles and, but little did I know that, it would grow into something that I could actually support my family with, kind of. It's still pretty tight, but
yeah.
So anyway, that's the gist of it,
Yeah, man, I tell you, when I was watching YouTube videos, that's actually what got me started into reselling. And I was watching a bigger YouTuber. He doesn't make content anymore, but I was watching him, and they were getting products from the Goodwill bins, and they were like, we spent $100 on this merchandise, and we're going to turn it into, $1,000, $1,500 worth of sales on eBay. And at the time, I'm working 40, 50, 60 hours at a factory. I'm in this 100-degree heat, driving a forklift. And I'm thinking about how many man hours I'm putting in working in this factory, driving a forklift just to make $1,000. And he's showing he's pulling $1,000 worth of merchandise in one day at the bins. And so everything was cool, but you don't really find out till you sit down and get into it that, yeah, everything that they're telling you in these YouTube videos is correct. The one part that you don't realize till you get into it is all the money that you're making in profit after you cover your expenses, a good chunk of that you have to reinvest to buy inventory for the following month. So everything, that was the one thing that that didn't add up. So everything is like, I was like, okay, subtract cost of goods, subtract eBay fees, subtract taxes. And this is how much I'm left over with. And then I was like, no, wait a minute. This is how much you're really left over with, because you have this good chunk of revenue you're having to reinvest back into your business, so you have products to sell the following month. So yeah, that's the one thing where it kind of like sticks out in your brain. So how has things been since you decided to leave? Tell everybody kind of what happened when you were at your full-time job, and how did you get to the point where you're at your wits end, where you're like, all right, guys, this is it for me. I put my 2 weeks notice in. I've slowly built up, because you've been doing eBay for a while. It wasn't like you started and like a week later you quit. So tell people your side of the story about what happened when you left your full-time job. Go ahead.
Well, my way is definitely not the way that I would recommend or do over. So I didn't give my 2 weeks notice. I didn't have, like, people will ask, well, did you get in a fight with your supervisor or what happened? I don't know how. It was probably over a year. I was wanting to leave. But I kept telling myself that that's just your ego. You need to check your ego. You just think you're better than you are. You need to stay at this job and just work hard and serve the employees, and, kind of that kind of stuff. Just be humble. You're not all that. You're not, one of these big, crazy eBay people. But one day in March, I think it was like the 24th, I just walked in and nothing happened. It was just a normal day. I was the supervisor that day, and I got the normal wave of employees coming and griping about hours or short staff, because this was during, the big COVID, when a lot of people were sick or not coming to work. And And I was just thinking like it was kind of like the peanut cartoons, just wah, 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 wah. But inside I was thinking, dude, what are you doing here? I guess there was one thing. There was this older guy at work, and he had a health problem, and he had to stay there because of the insurance. And this guy's older, close to retirement. He's at this time probably earning $13 an hour. And I was only earning like $18 an hour. So I was just looking at him while he was talking, and he's a sweet, sweet old man. He takes care of his family, took care of his wife when she was having health problems. And I was just looking at him thinking, if you don't take a risk and do something, you're going to be that guy. Not that he's bad. And there's tons of guys that are just stand-up guys that take care of their family, but I didn't want to be 60 and earning $13 an hour, having some ding-a-ling like me be my supervisor, So
Right.
yes, maybe that, but the day had already started. I think I was supposed to be there at 9. I would start from 9 to 7. And by 10:30, I was out of there. I just went to a couple of my friends and said, hey, I'm leaving. And they said, oh, you are? You're putting in a 2-week notice? I said, no, I'm leaving now. And so I got like a little scratch paper, and I wrote my notice to my boss. It was something like, thanks for the laughs or something like this. Consider this my notice. Put it on his desk, and I pieced out and went to the thrift store. But
Really?
yeah, and that was stupid because at that time I was like a month behind on my house payment. I had no savings. But I just did it. I just jumped out. And that's kind of how I do a lot of things in my life. I just I'm not one of these like new age people that say you got to trust your gut. But man, my dad was the same way. My dad worked for a county job. He was a welder for 36 years. 36 years he put in. And he was a good guy, took care of us, paid the bills, did the whole thing, went to church, Boy Scout leader. But he retired at 60 some, and he died 6 years later. He had 6 years to do what he wanted. And some of those years were taking care of my mom. So he put in 36 years and yeah, he took care of his kids, but what did he have? He didn't get to follow his dreams or his passions or do anything. He just, that's even worse story. He knew a guy that retired and died less than a year after he retired, after putting in 30 years. And to me, a lot of guys are okay with that. But to me, man, that clock is ticking. You don't know how many days you have left. So if there's something you want to try, you better try it. And that's kind of what I did. Now, a lot of people say that's foolish or irresponsible. Yeah, it is, because I had 3 kids and a wife and a mortgage. It was really stupid. But I did it, and I'm still here a year later. And luckily, the job market, nobody wants to work. So everywhere around here is hiring. So remember, I was only getting paid $18 an hour. I could get that almost at Walmart. So if for some reason I can't do eBay, I'll just go push carts at Walmart, and I'll still make what I was almost making at the plasma place, and I'll be fine, because
here in Florida, they recently voted to raise the minimum wage up to $15 an hour. So just like you said, is that, if just even a high school 15, 16-year-old kid could go get a job right now at McDonald's or Burger King and find a job that pays, $15 an hour because they voted to raise the minimum wage. And another thing is I wanted to add on is when I was working at my corporate job at General Electric, I was there from 2006 to 2016. And it's just like you said, they promise you and tell you have health insurance, you have benefits, you have a pension. But I'll tell you the truth, man, whenever you got to the end of the rainbow and you got this pot of gold, the average life expectancy was only 18 months. So yeah, in reality, they tell you that you're going to be able to retire at a certain age and you're going to have full health insurance and, and all this stuff. But you have to understand, we were in a blue collar factory. It was like shooting screws on the assembly line. We were doing blue collar work. So when you're a blue collar type of person and you've done that for 30, 35, 40 years of your life, your body does not transition well to sitting at home watching Wheel of Fortune or watching Jeopardy. It can't do it. It's got to be, it's like your body is on some kind of clock and it knows what time to get up, what time to go to lunch, what time you get off, and what time you go to bed. And that should have been your routine for 30 years. And so when you finally retire and they say, hey, ta-da, congratulations, you survived 30 years of working here, you get to retire. Life expectancy was 18 months. And I remember seeing people in the newspaper, people that have worked for General Electric that trained me when I was a new hire, and then hearing about them retiring. And then, a year and a half later, you'd see them in the obituaries passing away. And it
Wow.
was one of those things where it's like it was a real thing, and you kind of realize, like, hey, man, you're not immortal. You're not going to be on this planet forever. So you got to do what you want to do. And I didn't want to leave voluntarily at my job. It was one of those things where it was a corporate buyout, and we got bought out by this Chinese corporation, and my whole department was eliminated. But
Oh,
it's
that's
just one of those things, like you said, is that, once you reach this magical number of retirement, doesn't mean that the streets are going to be paved with gold and you're going to have a great time. Like you said, your father only lived another 8 years once he retired. And I knew many people who, like I said, life expectancy was 18 months, maybe lived a year and a half, 2 years, but not much longer than that. Just because they give you health insurance doesn't mean that you're going to survive much longer. And these companies, they do actuaries. They know. The human resources department, they know how many good years you have. They know actuaries of how long someone lives and how productive you're going to be. And they know when, hey, it's time to cut our losses and move on from this guy. So let me say hello to a few people here in the chat. I wanted to say, hey, real quick to Laura. Laura is here, says very chilly in north central Florida. Yeah, I'm in Tampa, and I think it's like 50 something degrees today, 53, 54. It's just called wintertime. Tomorrow will be another day. And I wanted to give a quick
full of baloney. 50 degrees. Yeah. It's probably 30 where I'm sitting in the garage right now. You just love your 50 degrees.
Well, right. In Florida, it's cold here for Florida. And I wanted to say hey to Jennifer Hayes, and she dropped your link in the chat. So thank you guys for coming in and hanging out with us here on the weekend on a Sunday. We appreciate you. So I was going to say, so you're in this position, you have a wife, you have a kid, you have a mortgage, you have a family. You said, all right, I've given my notice. I'm out of here. I'm leaving my corporate job. And in your mind, did you know that you were going to be a full-time reseller when you left? And kind of what was your plans from then on? Like, how did that go? Because you said you left immediately and started going to the thrift store looking for things to resell.
Yep, I remember standing in line, because here you still have to stand in line before, not for so many people per store, but they still make you stand in line when it opens, I guess. But I was looking at my shoes, at my dress shoes, and I said, well, I guess this is my life now, just standing there waiting for it to open. Actually, I guess I left before 10:30 because that place opens at 10. So I was there that day less than an hour. I was probably there 45 minutes because I went in, talked, quit, and still had time to make it before the thrift store opened. So, it sounds reckless the way I did it, as far as not having any savings and not putting any notice. But math wise, I knew that I was making more. The full-time job I had cut it down to 30 hours because of Obamacare. That was full-time. And then a lot of times I was taking late lunches, I was calling in. And so that became the side hustle. I was already supporting my family, most of the bills with eBay anyway. And so mathematically on paper, if you worked out the numbers, and by then I'd been doing it for, 2 years almost. So I knew what I was doing, kind of. I mean, you're always learning, but I knew the basics. I knew how to list. I knew how to ship. I had good feedback. So that was all good. I knew that it was just a matter of increasing my listings and making more money. The one thing, I was thinking, if I make an X number of dollars with this amount of hours, imagine if I took what was I working 30 hours a week and invested just half of that into eBay, it should translate into more. And it did. Like I said, things are still tight because, things come up. And also the thing that you had said, I had factored everything in except for the fact that you had to have extra money to restock your stuff and find things to sell. That's what bit me, because I didn't factor that in. And I thought, what the heck is happening to all the money? Why is it so tight? And it's like, duh, because you're buying stuff to resell. It doesn't just magically come for free. And so it turns out that in retrospect, that was what the job was funding. The job was funding my purchases. And so it took me, it's only until now, almost a year later, that things are kind of, I can loosen my belt a little bit and we can breathe. But yeah, it got pretty scary. But one thing about it also is it makes you really look at your business. I use GoDaddy for my bookkeeping, and you can see it. It gives you the month to month, what you spent and what you earned. Up to that month, or April probably, I was taking a loss every month, and I thought I was doing fine, but I wasn't keeping track of my spending the way I should have been. Well, when you go full time and there's no check coming in, if you want to last, you got to pay attention to that. So every month since last April, I was making a profit and ended the year making a profit. And, what do you suppose, depending on who you ask, what's a good margin for a small business? I'm hearing like 3 to 10%. Is that what, would you agree? Or
I think it just depends on what field you're in. I mean, if you're in a place like Walmart or the grocery place, they got razor thin margins. It just depends on what you're selling. But like you said earlier, that's the one thing that people don't factor in. When you're reselling part-time and you got a guaranteed check coming in every Friday, you don't really think about, your cost of goods or reinvesting capital back in your business. But when that's your full-time gig and you're like, okay, I've got to pay the light bill, the water bill, the mortgage, car payment, cell phone bill. And then you're like, this is how much money we have left over after expenses. And then I have this chunk of it I have to reinvest to go get more merchandise. So that's the one thing where you're kind of catching you off guard. And it's not like you don't know it, but you don't really pay attention to it as much. You just think like, okay, this is the capital that we have come, because you're so used to working a job. And when you work a job, you're like, okay, this is what my take home paycheck is for the week. You don't think, because you're not having to take, I mean, you have to put gas in your gas tank, but you don't think like I have to take this much money and reinvest it to go back to work next month. You just get up and go to work. And when you're a reseller, you're like, okay, great, I can sit here and list items, but wait a minute, I don't have anything to list, because you have to go out and reinvest your capital to get more merchandise. So let me say hello real quick to Snooze Along the Way is here hanging out with us. Says, I am moving from Pennsylvania to Florida in about a month, hoping the thrifting in my area will be good. Yeah, well, I can tell you from experience, I don't know what part of Florida you're moving to, but here in Tampa, usually it's not this cold outside. Usually it's warm year round, and there's plenty of yard sales and thrift stores and Goodwills and estate sales that you can go to year round. So in that respect, you shouldn't have a problem finding merchandise, and there's merchandise everywhere. It's all about getting it for the right price, so there's margin there. That's the whole game plan. And Snooze Along the Way says, what kind of items do you like to sell? So in your eBay store, what are some of your bread and butter items? What have been some hot items for you this past year since you became a full-time reseller?
Well, here in Utah, especially up in northern Utah, it's not like in Florida where you guys have yard sales and estate sales. So there's a season, and of course it goes around the snow. So in the garage sale season, I'll call it, that should start. I'm way up north near Idaho, so it gets warmer down south in Salt Lake sooner. So they'll probably start, depending on the winter, of course, but somewhere around March, they'll probably start having at least estate sales. So that's when that season starts up. It probably ends around November. So November to March, where I live, it's a lot like if you know Osborne to Thrift up in Idaho. He has one thrift store where he lives, and then he has to drive to the next one. And that's kind of how it is here. I have one thrift store here in town. There's a small mom and pop one, so I don't really count that one. So there's technically two. And if I want to get to another one, that's a 30-minute drive. So long answer to an easy question is it depends on what season it is. So if it's thrift store season, there's definitely things in my thrift store. I have a route, if you will, where I'll hit the electronics, the appliances. And when I say appliances, I mean like dehydrators, blender, those kind of small kitchen appliances. And then I'll hit, I just started getting into shoes. And so here there's a lot of hiking and outdoor stuff. So I'll hit the outdoor shoes, boots, ski boots, snow boots, those kind of things, bowling shoes, anything like that. And then I'll hit the normal shoes. Then I'll go down the glassware. So I've had a lot of success this year on the thrifting side with Pyrex, Corningware, the vintage stuff, not the new stuff, different vintage pots and pans. I've had a lot of luck with shoes lately. Of course, VCR combos are something that you can always sell for good money as long as you test them. I was doing a little bit of Amazon stuff like that, liquidation, but honestly, you get a better return getting the thrifted stuff than the Amazon. As far as the garage sale, I like estate sales, and I like the strategy where you make a pile and just throw a bunch of stuff in there, because I find you get your items cheaper. I had a few big hits last year. I had one where I bought probably, 130 or 140 vintage Barbies that were all still new in the box. And I'm about, I might be about 70% sold with those. I got that in March. Then there was another really good estate sale. One of these estate sales are like Pop died, and we're just trying to get rid of stuff. And he was a musician. He had all kinds of, cool Beatles stuff and musical instruments, DVD combo, just a lot of neat stuff in that house. And it was dirt cheap, and they didn't care because they just needed to clean out the house.
Right.
So estate sales are probably my big one. If you are going to go to estate sales, and maybe people that are watching this are new, I've had way better luck with the family run estate sales, because there's estate sale companies that'll come run it for you. And those guys a lot of times will charge retail or more, and you're not going to have any luck, and they're not going to budge on their price. So if you can tell by the ad when you read it, it'll say brought to you by Vintage Liquidations or something like that. I don't even go to those because they're not worth it. I'll go to only family run ones. And so, yeah, it just depends on the season. But
Okay.
Go ahead.
No,
Sorry.
I was going to say, what would you say would be your top 3 tips or top 3 pieces of advice that you have gained from being a full-time reseller over this past year?
Jeez. Well, I'm kind of contrary to what other eBayers say, where you should just stick to one category, like just clothes or just shoes. I don't agree with. You could maybe do that if you had the right kind of hookups and the right kind of supply. If you're in an area like me, that won't work unless maybe someone could come in here and just roll in and do that, but there's no swap meets here. There's none of that. So my number one tip is have a reseller Rolodex in your head, but make sure they're good things. So when I first started out, I'd buy anything I could flip. I didn't care. Now I have it narrowed down to probably 10 categories. I'm always looking. It's a hard question because I can't tell you exactly what I'm looking for. But if I roll in and I see like a KitchenAid mixer and I test and it works, I'm buying it. If I find like I found a dehydrator, I'll buy it. It just depends. If it's something that I know, like a dehydrator or a mixer, and I know it's flippable, the more you do this, the more you'll get to see, like, they have that mixer marked at $5. That's a $200 mixer. I don't care if that's not in my Rolodex. I'm getting that. And just build your Rolodex to some solid items. The number 2 thing is test your items. I've lost so much money not testing things, thinking, oh, it'll be fine, or I'll test it later, whatever it is. And then the third one kind of goes along with testing is make sure you look at your items, because you'll when you're new, especially, you'll find something, oh, this is going to be great, and you'll just grab it, you'll look it over really fast, you'll bring it home, and they'll turn it over, and you'll see a big crack on the corner or something like that you didn't notice because you were either excited to find it or you're trying to get it before the next guy. So I guess to sum it up, take your time. My strategy at a thrift store, like a lot of people probably, is you go in and it's the mad rush. I just put everything in my cart, and then I'll go find a corner where my Wi-Fi works. I'll inspect each item, look up if I don't know for sure, see if the money's there. I use a thing called salecalc.com. It's Sales Calc or Sale Calc, one of those two, but it's basically just a calculator. You plug in all your things, and it lets you know where your money's at, if it's there or not. And that's what I'll use if I'm unsure. But yeah, I guess I keep saying the last thing. I won't buy. There's this eBay guy at my thrift store, and he kind of told me I won't buy anything unless it's like 10. Like, what did he say? 10% of the cost. So if it's 10 that he can turn it into 100, that's when he'll buy it. That's a little steep, like too much of a difference for me. But basically, I just cut it down to it has to be able to be listed for $20 or more net, not gross. So if I can make $20 off it with everything done, then I'll buy it if it's something that I know about.
Yeah. You were talking earlier about Osborne the Thrift. He's a previous guest I've had on, and you mentioned something about daily refinement. He was saying lately that just because you have an item listed on your eBay store, if it's not a sellable item, if it's not something that people want, it's almost the same thing as not having it listed in your eBay store at all. Absolutely. So that's something I've been trying to work with. I have over 6,500 items listed on eBay, but let's say if I have something, let's say like I just bought 1,500 CDs recently for 50 cents a piece. But if I have something that nobody wants to buy, let's say I have this marked for, maybe I paid 50 cents for it and I have it marked for $15 and it sets for 6 months or a year and no one wants to buy that item. Yeah, technically you have that item listed in your store, but if it's not an item that's in demand, it's just going to sit there and collect dust. So you got to kind of factor that in and factor in how much space you have to store merchandise, and then kind of look at the sell-through rate. The eBay will tell you in the past, 90 days, how many of those items have sold on eBay. So that way you're not going in blind. Check the sold listings before you just pull something off the shelf and say, oh, this is a great deal. I'm buying this for $1 and it sells on eBay for $25. Okay. But
Yeah.
does it though? You know, because somebody may have it listed for 25 and you may have it in your hand for $1, but it doesn't necessarily correlate. That means it's going to sell for that price. You can go and look in the sold listings and it'll show you how many of those have actually sold. So that's another thing. And then trying to have something where you have enough margin where you're going to make a profit. So yeah, I mean, hypothetically, I could go to a thrift store and find an item, let's say for $5, and it sells on eBay for $15, or you want to buy an item that for $5 that sells for 50. So maybe it may not sell right away, but you've got more profit margin there that you're going to make a profit on. So let me say hello to a few people here in the chat. We have Kazuru 3000 says, seems that eBay isn't the place for a niche. You can have a niche. Like I said, I have 6,500 active items on my eBay store. Most of them are media items. It's CDs, DVDs, Blu-rays, video games, VHS tapes. Most of them are in the media category. So if you have a supply of something in that niche and you can get a good supply of it, that's fine. What eBay Hustler is saying is that in his niche, in his city that he lives in, there's not a big bountiful of one item. It's not like he can walk in and walk out with 1,000 or 2,000 DVDs. He's got to go with what he has on hand that he can buy and resell. Snooze Along the Way says, sometimes it's hard to have just one niche because trends change. As resellers, we need to know what the buyers are looking for. That's why I love YouTube. Yeah, that's what I was just saying, that you want to find items that people actually want to buy. That's why other YouTubers can make what's sold videos every week and show you what's selling right now. I wanted to say hey to Sunny, Las Vegas is here in the chat. Thanks for coming by and hanging out. And Laura says, great information. I'm lucky we have estate sales and yard sales 4 days a week, but I'm a newbie and also learning a lot. Well, hey, thank you for coming by and hanging out. And there's a lot of people, YouTubers, there's a lot of other resellers, not just me and the eBay Hustler, that put out good information every week. So eBay Hustler, I got to put you on the spot since you came on my show. Tell the people what some of your top 2 or 3 goals this year for 2022. What are 3 goals off the top of your head that you have for 2022?
Well, I have a coach. His name's Wes Watson. He's here on YouTube, and he wanted my goals. And I said, well, I want to gross $100,000 and get monetized on eBay. And he yelled at me and said, that's too easy. So I want to gross 200,000 this year, and I want to put a big dent in my house using that. My other thing is I want to track and manage my spending, which is going to be essential in getting a lot of my house paid with that amount of sales.
Right.
I get scatterbrained, and that's another thing that he has taught me is it translates to YouTube, it translates to eBay, is just you pick something for a reason. So I pick doing YouTube videos on eBay for a reason. I enjoy it. Stop worrying about when you're going to make money from it, especially if it's your side hustle, and just do it. And if you do it consistently, the same thing over and over, as long as it's something good, and you like it, it will translate into financial success eventually. My problem in the past has been, I'll try selling these things, or I'll try selling these things, or I'll go to DVDs, or I'll do this. And it just doesn't work. Find a couple things that you like, that you enjoy selling, whether it's, vintage crocodile statues, or if it's men's underwear, I don't know, whatever the heck. If you enjoy selling it, just focus on that, have fun doing it. And eventually, if you do it well enough and you offer a good customer service, and it'll translate into success eventually. And I'm learning the same with YouTube. Is you just pick something and just be genuine. And the thing about it with YouTube, I think, is people can sense that if you're fake or not. If you're trying to do it just to get monetized, that's not going to be, it's not going to translate, I don't think, to the viewer. But if you're talking about something that you're passionate about, people who are also passionate about that will watch, and it'll just grow. And it might take 50 years, but eventually you should be successful. But
go ahead. Everything takes time. Nothing happens overnight. And I tell my audience all the time, everybody starts with 0. Everybody starts an eBay store with 0 items listed. Everybody starts at YouTube with 0 subscribers. So it's kind of a level playing field in that respect. But it's also, you have to kind of balance and manage your time to see where it's going to be most efficient and most effective. Because, you only have so many hours in a day. That's one thing is that, me and Elon Musk, we both have the same 24 hours in a day. So it's just all about how you use and manage your time. And that's another thing that's really important, because it might be like, yeah, you may be able to make so much money doing this, but what if you reallocated your time to doing something else,
Right. And I think that's what are most people doing right now on Sunday afternoon? I'm thinking there's football games on or something, but I don't know. I know the only reason I know is because someone mentioned it at church, but I don't know what season of sport it is. I don't know who's in the playoffs. I don't know who plays on these teams. I don't know any of that stuff. I don't do any of that stuff. And if you do, that's fine. But Sunday afternoon, after we got off the call here, I'm going to list and I'm going to ship some items. And that's what I choose to do my time. There's a question here about,
we have two questions.
Alone? Yeah. If I'm alone, or do I have help?
Okay. Yeah. Well, let's hit these questions then. Snooze Along the Way has a question. Says, how many items do you list each day? Veronica, the boss, says, do you work on eBay alone or do you have help? And we have another question, says, what does your typical day look like for you? So let's hit the first question first. How many items do you typically list each day as a full-time reseller?
I would ask a different question, because I used to use that as my metric. That's how I made the pitfall. Now I know you sell media, so I'm not bashing on you, but media is not for me, and I'll tell you why. I got caught in the pitfall of, well, gee, if I can get this many DVDs, I can put up 20 listings a day. That's going to be sick, and I'll have 5,000 things listed, and it's going to be all good. And I did that for a while, and then I realized, you're making $2 a movie right now, because I would buy them for $1 and sell them for $9.99 with free shipping like a moron. So after fees and everything, I'm making like $3. So yeah, I might be listing 20 items a day and making 15 or 20, 25 sales a day. But at the end of that day, that translates to $150. And when I have to make $3,500 just to break even with my house payment and the bills and the kids, and kids eat and they leave lights on, and that's a lot of DVDs. To make that kind of money, you have to sell a lot of books or DVDs or items like that. So I realized the first thing I did was I took everything in my store that was $10 and below, and I put it on a 40% off sale, and I started charging shipping. So I'm cleaning out all those items. And then, like I talked about earlier, I'm replacing those items with items that are $20 or more net profit after everything's said and done. So I switched from worrying about how many listings I'm doing, and now I worry about how much money I'm listing. So I have a little sheet here. Whoop, there we go. And I put a little hash mark, and I went from doing 20 listings a day to probably about 10 listings a day, but I'm listing like $400, $500, $600 a day. So this last week I put up $2,900 in value and list. I don't know how you'd say that, in list money inventory. What would you call that?
I would just call it listed inventory.
Yeah.
It's almost like, I have this trick I have in my head that when I list an item on eBay, I feel like I'm depositing a check in my eBay bank account, and we're waiting for it to clear.
Right.
So
exactly.
go ahead. Right.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Again, Chris on Daily Refinement said he doesn't get excited when he sources. He gets excited when he lists, because that's when you're going to make the money. So it's just like you said, you're just putting that money in there. You're putting something on your shelf in your store that someone's going to buy. So that's what I focus on, is the value of what I'm listing, not so much the amount of listings, because I could go to my garage, I could go to the thrift store, and I could go get 100 trash items and feel like, Mr. Burns on The Simpsons, I'm Mr. Rich now because I put up 100 listings. But like you said, if they're dog collars and, old plastic, no one's going to buy it. So good for you. You have 10,000 listings, but are they selling? And if they are you making money, or are you just spinning your wheels? So that was a hard lesson for me to learn.
Yeah, like we talked about earlier, just because you have an item listed in your eBay store, you can have 1,000, 10,000, 20,000 items in your store, but it's not about them being bad quality listings. It's got to be an item that people actually want. That's what I was saying. If I can have, 1,000 items in my store, but if they're not items that people actually want to buy, they're just sitting here collecting dust, and you're just spinning your wheels. So, so yeah, I kind of agree with you in that sense of having items that people actually want. But also I agree that I don't do free shipping on my store. If somebody wants to buy something because the post office keeps raising their rates every 6 months, I have the eBay customer pay for shipping because I can't build it into the listing because every 6 months they're going to keep raising their cost of shipping, and that's going to eat into your profit margin. You may not realize it at first, but when you start doing hundreds and hundreds of thousands of items, that extra 50 cents or 75 cents that they kept increasing cuts into your profit margin. So I have my customers pay, like I said, I do media mail shipping. Another thing is I have another gig that I work where I'm not dependent on just income from eBay to pay my bills. So, so we had another question in the chat says, do you typically work alone? I don't have any employees. I do everything all by myself. And what about you, eBay Hustler? Do you have anybody help you? Your kids, your wife, anything like that, or you do it all by yourself?
They might pull an order here or there, but the kids hate it. At the end of the day, helping dad do work, so they don't want to do that. I do it all myself, and I do it all myself.
How old are your kids? I think that would be a good thing for them to be able to learn.
You'd think, but my daughter's 14, my son's 11, and my other daughter's 5. The 5-year-old, she still thinks daddy's cool. They're at that age, so she'll want to pull my items, but it's faster if I do it. Because into that other question, if you want me to answer that one about the typical day, like I don't have time. Sometimes if I have time, I'll let the little one help me, but I'm on a pretty strict schedule wise, so I have to get things done. Otherwise they don't get done.
Yeah, for sure. I just wanted to give a shout out real quick to my buddy Kelly Reseller Louise is here in the chat. Says, hey Jeff and eBay Hustler. And I wanted to say hey to Snooze Along the Way. And says, yes, kids eat a lot. And I don't know about this question. Says, what is a good selling cost percentage? 36% is high. I don't know what you mean exactly by that. Do you know what they mean by that question?
I think what is a good, like her costs, like that one, I don't know what it's called either. I could flip over to my eBay thing, just how much it's costing you total to sell all your stuff. And 36% seems a little high. It all depends on what you're listing, if you're charging for shipping, because I believe shipping is factored into that cost on the eBay page. I've gotten mine, and then also if you're promoting, promoted listings will shoot that up. The high, and also if you're top rated, above average, or whatever the low one is. I know there were 2 months a couple of years ago that I was, below low average or whatever is the naughty chair, the eBay naughty chair. I was in that, and holy cow, my selling costs went up to like 38% because you get that penalty. 36% seems a little high. I think I'm somewhere around 28 or 29. Actually, I think charging shipping will decrease that because that counts as income. So maybe try charging shipping or adjust your promoted listings, maybe, your seller status. But I mean, 36, I don't think is astronomically high, but it's ish.
What do you usually charge for your promoted listings? What do you usually put your promoted listings on your store at? I'm just curious.
I use whatever they suggest. I used to never do. There was like that. I don't know if it was real or an urban legend to where they said that eBay was, if you promoted it, they only promoted it once and then it would disappear. So I got all scared and I didn't promote for a long time. And just recently I promote everything and I promote it at or above what eBay suggests.
What the trending number? Yeah, I just do all mine at 1%. I want to try to keep, because I'm a high volume seller. Like I said, I have 6,500 items active in my store, and not all of them are $50, $100 items. I may have a lot of items that are $10, $15, $20 items. So it doesn't make sense for me to increase my promoted listings. So yeah, it may result into more sales, but then I'm just turning around giving eBay the higher percentage of my potential profit. So I personally just do 1% promoted listings on my store. That's what works for me. But everybody's different. I wanted to catch this question in the chat. It says, what does your typical working day look like for you? So I know that may be different for you, eBay Hustler, because you have a family, you have kids, you got to take them to school, and then you're helping them with homework and cooking dinner. So go ahead and talk about your typical day. Let's go ahead and hear it. You can tell us kind of what your day looks like.
Well, my ideal day, or how I've been living lately. My ideal day and how I used to do it is I would get up early. I do like my morning self-development, affirmations, journaling, all that stuff. then I'd go exercise, then I would jump right into work. Now, it's not fun to exercise out. I keep looking at the weather, but it's cold out there. I don't really want to get into the gym. So typically I'll wake up in time to take my oldest daughter to school. If it's a sourcing day, I source, Tuesday through Saturday. So I'll dink around the house until it's time to go do that. And from 10 to 11, I'll source. Then 11 to 2:30, I'll ship and list, and then I'll come home from picking up my daughter, and I'll ship and list some more until 4. Then I take the kids and I to martial arts class. Then I come home, and while they're in the shower, I ship and list some more, and that's it. Now, if it's a weekend, I'll ship and list all day and just get interrupted by, going to church or taking the kids to a play date, stuff like that. But I don't make dinner. Sometimes I do my laundry, but I'm in one of these typical old school marriages where my wife kind of does the cooking, or my daughter or my son is going to cook tonight, but I don't cook dinner much. It gets really busy when the good weather is here because I'm out doing more of my homesteading, self-sufficiency, gardening stuff, which I can't do now. So that's even worse then. But basically my downtime, I'm doing this, or I'm with the kids and we're doing our martial arts, like I said, or that kind of stuff. But
yeah,
I'm in this cold dungeon most of the time with the heater running.
Yeah, I was going to say you have to get you a space heater or something in there.
Oh, I have
All
one.
right.
It's gigantic,
Oh,
but it's,
okay.
man, it's 20 outside, so a space heater in a garage, just barely keeps it to where I'm not shivering.
Oh man. So all right. So tell me, what has been your biggest thing that you've noticed since you've gone full time, since you were kind of doing it part time? You've been a full time reseller now this past year. What would be like your biggest, like, tell us the pros and cons. Like, what was some good things or bad things that you've noticed from kind of working a full time gig, doing reselling part time, to now eBay being your full time gig?
Well, I just did a video on that, so that's an easy question.
Not everybody has seen it, so
you gotta go watch it.
I saw it, but come
more
on,
of my mumbling. One of the things I learned is that it's really easy to be disciplined when you have a boss to answer to. So I still am into self-development and entrepreneurship and discipline and this kind of stuff. It really tests your systems if you have no boss, because I could go sit on the couch right now and nobody's going to tell me anything. Now my wife will walk by and say, aren't you going to list today? Or she'll say something, and that's her thing of saying, get off your butt and go get to work. But I could just dismiss her, or just, oh no, I'm not doing that. Or just, you can do what you want. And that's the problem. The downside is when you work for yourself, or you're someone like me that wants to maximize as much freedom as possible from everything and everybody, from A to Z. The problem with that is that it maximizes your personal responsibility. If you say, I don't want to be on the grid, I don't want to be part of the system, I don't want any of this, well, guess what? You can't go running to these people for help when you fall through the net, because there's no net, So part of losing my full-time job was not having that health insurance and not having that retirement. So if I say, oh, well, too bad, then, well, guess who's eating top ramen when he's 65? Me. So I have to take the responsibility to put into my IRA, invest in a Robinhood, whatever it is that you invest in. I think Utah Bought and Sold puts up a lot of information on his Instagram about that and his investment accounts. And that's something that's definitely lacking with me. One of the biggest pluses was when I got the COVIDs last over New Year's Eve, New Year's Day. I was sick for 3 days. Luckily, I was sick during a time that I didn't have to ship over the weekend, and so that was a good thing. But if you get sick at work, especially with coronavirus, my God, to get back to work, you have to get tested and this, and wait your 2 weeks and your quarantine, and you got to jump through all these hoops because, you might get someone sick and then the end of the world will happen. You don't have that. I just stayed home, and luckily, thank God, it was a time when I didn't have to worry about shipping. I could just kind of sit around and get better, but there was no one yelling at me. There was nothing. It was just, I'm sick. Worst case scenario, my plan was, if I'm going to be sick into the work week, I'll just put my store on vacation mode. Then I don't have to ship and I can still make sales. I won't list, but it'll be all good. And that really helped out. And so just so much personal freedom, but you have to have the discipline. If not, this isn't for you. You have to be able to set your own discipline. You set your own hours. You got to set your own hours. It's a double-edged sword, you know?
Yeah, I'm with you, man. Usually, when 9 times out of 10, when people ask me if they should quit their job and be a full-time reseller, I say, hey, there's nothing wrong with keeping your full-time job and reselling on the side. There's plenty of people that go out and hit yard sales and estate sales on the weekends, on Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and kill it and make an extra $800 or $1,000 that week in sales. Just because not everybody, like you said, is built to be an entrepreneur. Not everybody is that disciplined because they don't have someone telling them to clock in and to go to clock into work at a certain time, your lunch breaks at a certain time, and then you go home at a certain time. And when you don't have that discipline, you don't have somebody, that boss, telling you what to do all the time, and you're just sitting back relaxing. You're like, oh, I'm going to sit here and watch this TV show for 30 minutes. Well, the 30 minutes may turn into 4 hours. You know what I mean? Because you don't have somebody saying, oh, you have to be at work at a certain time, and you could just fall into that pit. And I like what you said earlier about being able to have money set aside for savings and investments and for a rainy day, because I don't think enough people are doing that personally. They don't have enough money set aside for a rainy day, because it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when a rainy day is going to happen. It may not happen today, may not happen tomorrow, but sooner or later, you're not going to be able to dodge a bullet and the engine or transmission is going to go out, or, you're going to be in bed sick for 2 or 3 weeks and can't work. Like, just it happens to everybody. So if you can figure out a way where you can set money aside for a rainy day or have investments and stuff set aside, that would help, So anyways, let me say, go ahead.
No, I was going to say that's kind of what I do on my YouTube channel, is why if you look at my videos, some are like how to can vegetables and fruits and raise chickens, and then how to sell Barbies. Like, what kind of ridiculous YouTube channel is this? And it's because it all has the common theme of not only, like you said, being prepared for a rainy day, but also to live as cheap as possible. Like, the heating bill across the United States is going to be huge this year because all those prices have gone up for heating oil and all those things. I burn wood, and a lot of the wood I grew in my backyard. I don't have that much of a heating bill because I took that time in the down months to make those ridiculous videos of me chopping wood, and now I'm burning wood. So my heating bill is like $50 a month. And there's a lot of people that this time of year that are going to be paying hundreds for their heating bill this time, right around now, because it's expensive. But that's kind of the niche of my YouTube channel there.
Yeah, we're on the same page as far as that goes. If you can live, I know for a while you called yourself debt-free eBay or something. So if you can live without being in debt and not be driving around in a $50,000 car to impress the Joneses, and you can reduce your monthly expenses as low as possible. Like a couple of years ago, the average rent for a 2-bedroom apartment was like $1,400 a month. Now here in Florida, it's like over $2,000 a month if you can find one, and that's people that do have all the amenities, gated community, swimming pool, gym, all that stuff. You're looking at $2,000 a month for a 2-bedroom, 2-bath apartment somewhere. So and then of course the cost of living is going up. If you notice, what it was a couple of years ago, the cost of gas or the cost of food, and all these things are going to slowly start going up, whether it's your cell phone bill or car insurance or gas or groceries or utilities, like you mentioned. Stuff's going to keep going up. And so if your income is stagnant, and meanwhile your expenses are going up, you're gonna run into a problem there. So hey, we were gonna try to keep this right around 45 minutes. I want to give a shout out to a few people in the chat who's hanging out with us this weekend. I want to give a shout out to Katie Reeds. If you guys aren't following Katie Reeds, go by and check her channel out. Kelly Reseller Louise is here today. Nikki Lovesacks is here. Thanks for coming by and hanging out with us today. Snooze Along the Way is here. Laura says very real down-to-earth conversation. Love this interview. Hey, thanks for hanging out with us today. I wanted to give a shout-out to Sonny is here in the chat. GDM Hybrid says, thank you, guys. Doc Diggle is here. And I think that's it. I don't think I missed anybody in the chat. Nikki Lovesacks and Kelly Reseller Louise. So if you guys want to go by and follow our guests, tell them where they can go by and check you out at on YouTube and Instagram. I'll have all your links listed down below, but let them know where they can go by and follow you at.
Pretty much just the YouTube, the eBay Hustler. I don't do much on my Instagram, really. I don't know. It's too many things, I'm trying to just focus on the eBay and YouTube for the most part, but that's pretty much it. If you want to learn how to raise chickens, you can come watch some videos.
Okay. Okay. For sure. Yeah, big guys. So go ahead and follow our guests. All the links are going to be down below. If you want to learn about, chickens, or maybe if you want to learn about, maybe how to get out of debt or how to reduce your expenses, or you want to learn more about how he does his business being a full-time reseller, go by and follow him. All the links are going to be listed down below for YouTube and Instagram. And I will catch you guys next week. I have a panel of new guests that I have lined up next week. Some brand new guests that you guys have probably never seen before. So till then, I will catch you guys next week. And you guys have a great weekend. We'll catch you later. You guys have a great weekend. Bye, everybody.
See you later.